they can catch up then. So hi everyone, thanks to the Culture List, part of State of the Youth Nation. If you don't already know what the Culture List is, it offers a glimpse into youth culture, a peek into what's popular, and an opportunity to learn about the current trends that are engaging Gen Z on a day-to-day basis. I guess the Culture List is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a set of lists, and we will be going through the lists, telling you what's on them, but more importantly, telling you our interpretation of why these things are on the list. Next slide, please, Caitlin. But before we get into the lists, I guess it's probably useful for us to give you a bit of context about who we are and what we're doing. So I'm Josephine Hanson. I'm an SVP at Savanta. I head up the youth practice there, and in my spare time, I'm on the board of the Market Research Society. I have been a researcher for 20 years, and State of the Youth Nation was my idea about 8, 9, 10 years ago. So, and these slides today were prepared by Caitlin and Kia, as you can see on the slide. But I'm being joined not by Kaya, but by Caitlin today for the presentation. So, Caitlin, would you like to say hello?
Hi everyone. If we haven't met before, I'm Kate. I am now working in the product team and helping out Josephine on all of the youth research in Savanta, and that's across all of the divisions. Previously, I joined as a grad in the consumer team, so I worked in the product innovation there, doing a lot of like beer and burger testing and insight testing, and then I switched over to my youth role in May. So this is my first culture list, and it's been very exciting to put it together.
Really well, thank you for all your hard work, both of you. It's probably worth mentioning a little bit of context about State of the Youth Nation. It's our 16 to 24-year-old tracker. It was started in 2015, so we are approaching 10 years of tracking data, which is quite exciting. We interview 1,000 16 to 24s every 60 days, which means 6,000 young people a year. And we are approaching over 50,000 young people in our data set, which is an exciting sort of milestone to get to. As members of State of the Youth Nation, you get access to our webinars, so things like this, the culture list and any keynote speeches that we give, but you also get access to all the data that we collect and any insight reports that we publish on the Insight dashboard. Next slide, please. So what will we cover today? So each wave we cover a number of lists, culture lists. There's 4 today. And each list comes from an open-ended question that we have in our survey. So we give the power to young people to tell us what's on their mind. We don't have a set list of them to choose from. So all of these answers, all of the lists that we'll be sharing today will be from the open-ended answers from young people. And the data was gathered last month in June. So we'll be talking about popular TV shows for young people. We'll be talking about sports personalities. We'll be talking about disliked brands and food trends. So a lot of different things to go through today. It'll be quite fast paced. Caitlin and I will sort of do half each. We haven't got time for questions at the end, but there will be an email address. And if you want to get in touch, please do. So let's move on to TV shows. This is my one. So as you can see, the top 3 TV shows were Grey's Anatomy, Fallout, and Baby Reindeer. I'll be talking about those in a bit more detail in a minute. But also popular was The Gentleman, which I didn't realise actually was as a spin-off of the Guy Ritchie film. And then The Big Bang Theory, Gilmore Girls, Stranger Things, and interestingly, EastEnders. But what I took from looking at this list just at this point was that the majority of these shows are on Netflix. So The Gentleman, Baby Reindeer, Big Bang Theory, and Stranger Things, while Grey's Anatomy is on Disney Plus, Fallout on Amazon, and of course BBC still making and showing EastEnders. But yeah, monopolized by Netflix at the moment in terms of which streaming platform young people are accessing their shows. Next slide, please. Grey's Anatomy. So it's in its 20th season. It started in 2005, which is a million years ago, but it makes it perfect for binge watching for Gen Z because that's really what they like to do, having a TV marathon, rather than having to wait for episodes to be released every week. It gives that instant gratification. And I guess for Gen Z, they also have kind of a strong emotional attachment to the show and many of the characters that are within it because there have been 20 seasons. And some of those characters, unbelievably, are still in the show from the beginning. Research by VAB shows that Gen Z are emotionally impacted by TV shows more than social media content due to their authenticity of characters and commitment to becoming emotionally invested in a TV show over time. And I think that's quite interesting because I think we always talk about the power of social media, but there is a power that is developed over time and the relationship a TV show has with young people that can move them emotionally more than seeing something on TV. And the quote on the screen is also quite an interesting one. So about Grey's Anatomy. So the drama has been among the most popular series on TV, even as the landscape of TV has changed seismically because 2005 there was no Netflix. And at its season 2 ratings height, the program drew in an audience of 20 million viewers, which is just insane. And all of these years later, the TV universe now divided, more than 50 scripted shows. Grey's still ranks as the #1 drama for 18 to 34-year-olds, and the #2 amongst 18 to 30 to 49-year-olds, which is just, you know, a real feat for a TV show to be still up there after all this time. Now, that's for something old, something new, Baby Reindeer. So Baby Reindeer has had Gen Z hooked because it has quite a unique concept, if any of you have seen it. It shares a dramatic, traumatic story of abuse, stalking, and kind of that blurring of lines between who is the victim and who is the villain. According to our State of the Youth Nation data, comedy, crime, thrillers are Gen Z's top 2 kind of TV show genres. And it's no surprise that this dark comedy is kind of tapping into that true crime that they love as well. So the show itself didn't feature any big stars, yet it soared to 60 million global views in the first month, emphasizing the kind of the word of mouth promotion that these kind of shows can have via social media recommendation. And looking at our data, it backs this up. So getting a recommendation through social media when you're looking to watch something, according to our data for 16 to 24-year-olds, is now higher than getting recommendations from friends. I think that's because it's quite a personal choice often. Content consumption isn't something that is done with families or households on a big TV. Most of the time, it's something that is personal to your device. And so therefore, it kind of makes sense that finding your own social media recommendation might work for you. But for those of you who have seen it, you might recognize, we're going to play a TikTok in a second, but there are sort of memes and sound bites that have been all over social media. I thought we'd show you just one here from TikTok from this program. Share with sound. Do you want to unshare and share again, Caitlin?
Yeah, 2 seconds, sorry.
But while we're doing that, I guess the show did ignite the natural curiosity for Gen Z. So that true life conspiracy theories, and once people recognised that Martha was a real person, they've tracked her down. She appeared controversially on Piers Morgan Uncensored, and yeah, it just added to the drama of this series. So.
Where were you last night? You need to tell me if you're not working. Kept thinking of you floating in that canal somewhere, face down. You know, the one you go through. when you walk to the bus from work.
3p. Next slide, please, and we'll talk about the Fallout. So Fallout, for those of you who don't know, became Amazon Prime's second most watched title of all time. 65 million views over 16 days, and there's a season 2 confirmed. But what's interesting about this show is that it's a spin-off of a game. So its sort of setting reflects a kind of fictional exploration of the gameplay, and it's been said by some of the young people in our data that it's one of the best video game adaptations ever seen. And of course, young people have grown up with gaming. Gaming isn't kind of a new or niche thing to Gen Z. It's popular with many, in particular, obviously young males, but not uniquely to that. But what's interesting here is the marketing techniques, including collaborating with Twitch gamers who kind of streamed reactions to the show while they were kind of talking to their audience on Twitch, who were mostly gamers. But also there was a kind of a vice versa marketing where the show also benefited the game. So people who didn't know about the game started playing it because they'd seen the show. And I guess if you're interested in this kind of crossover content, I'll be speaking at the Children's Media Conference next month, in 2 weeks, I think, with our client WildBrain about how you can optimize this kind of crossover between content platforms. So I think that's me in terms of the list. I'm going to hand over now to Caitlin, and I'll see you again at the end.
Hi everyone, I'm going to take you through our top disliked brands that came through this year. We ask at the end of the year for like brands, and then at the start of the year we start with our disliked brands. And really what we're seeing coming through our top 3 are Shein, Starbucks and McDonald's, which is quite typical. That's the top 3 that we had last year come through as well. What's rather interesting and what I'll take you through is we have a little bit more varied reasoning for our boycotts or dislikes this year than we had last year. We typically just saw sustainability coming through it last year. So as you can see, Shein is often top of the list when it comes to Gen Z's most hated or disliked brand. More than any other generation, we've seen Gen Z make that commitment to sustainability and to be more proactive in their activism for both workers' rights and climate action, which is an area that Shein crosses both of those platforms. Whilst we are aware of Shein's negative reputation among this generation, they have claimed and done a real drive in the last couple of years through their PR to be working towards a more sustainable, safer working environment for their workers. We see this reflected a little bit in the people who are saying that they are liking Shein among Gen Z. There's a bit of a say-do gap here. What Josephine and I can really tell from that say-do gap and, saying, well, I'm stand up for workers' rights and I stand up for sustainability, but then we continue to see Shein being a very popular brand among Gen Z, is that there's this real sort of pressure between keeping up with trends and being part of that sort of cool culture, wearing fashion that is seen as interesting among your friends, and at the same time being a generation that sticks very core to their beliefs. And so we see people trying to navigate that balance quite a lot within Gen Z, and it can prove for some sort of maybe hypocritical statements, something along those lines, or at least a discrepancy in what we hear Gen Z saying they are standing up for and then what we see actually in the retail space.
It was mine. I'll take it back, but you've done so brilliantly.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're fine.
I'll continue on. I realise that that was my section, not yours. But you're right. That say-do gap is something that I'm often asked about. And I guess my top line answer is yes, they don't make sense. But but I think we're all a little contradictory sometimes, and we're all a little illogical. So that's the outcome of that. But I guess Starbucks and McDonald's were at the top of the list, and they have come under fire a lot in the world of Gen Z for their positions on the Israel-Palestine conflict, and there has been a lot of boycotting going on amongst this age group. These brands have been kind of called out across different platforms, but notably TikTok and Instagram, which is where young people are turning to kind of rally the support for their causes, but also to boycott the brands that they feel that are not taking the right stand for their personal point of view. In addition to this, there's widespread information being shared with Gen Z on TikTok. Sort of shadow banning is a phrase that was used. Removing content that is deemed to be controversial, which is making Gen Z quite upset about their favourite social media platforms because they feel it's suppressing their political views. And so they're looking for alternative ways to show their support. So instead of creating content that explicitly calling out their political point of views, they are using things like the watermelon filter that was created by Johnson. So this filter has been used by 112 million people, or over 112 million times to be more accurate. It's generated £14,000 in revenue for the TikTok's Effect Creator Rewards program. So if you don't know what that is, I don't expect you do, but it means that all that money is being donated to the support, in this instance, for the pro-Palestine charity. But the watermelon emoji in itself is being used as that sort of symbol and of solidarity for Palestine due to having the same colours as the flag. But I guess ultimately the speed of which information and opinions are being shared on social media, it is an interesting time to be observing not just information, but misinformation or disinformation, and the ways that Gen Z are taking action, whether that be a boycott, a backlash. And if you're interested in understanding how Gen Z are using their power, not just their power as consumers, but also their power and their networks and their way of using social media. We have just recently published an activism ebook to understand how you can align with the next generation, but also learn a little bit of how you can avoid being the target of one of these campaigns. I believe it is properly over to you, Caitlin, and I again thank you for covering just then.
No worries, thanks, Josephine. So the first section that I'm going to take you guys through today is the sports personalities section, which was a very fun one to research. We asked Gen Z who their favourite sports person was, but then we also asked them why that was the case. And as you can see, football really sort of remains the king for Gen Z, with Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo being the top two. And then Andy Murray, who has replaced Marcus Rashford as number 3 this year. The new additions that we see in this top 10 are Beth Mead, the female footballer, David Beckham, and then Anthony Joshua, who is in it for the first time this year. So it's clear that the sort of star power on and off of the pitch for footballers is really a way that you can capture young people's attention. That sort of global appeal and the celebrity around these footballers is a real potential area for engaging young people. We also see that representation matters a lot here. We've got the inclusion of Beth Mead for the first time, and then we have Serena Williams again coming up this year. Just sort of showing that dial of who it is that we are idolising within the sporting world is shifting to be a little bit more gender neutral than it has been in previous years. So yeah, we can really see that Gen Z are admiring athletes not only for their contributions on the pitch, but also off of the pitch. We see and a reasoning for like why these are their favorite sports people. Things coming up like Messi's work with UNICEF as an ambassador. A lot of people talking about Marcus Rashford not as a footballer, but as a sort of campaigner for child food poverty and all of the work that he did during the COVID pandemic. Which is really keeping them consistently in the top 10 year on year. What we're really seeing from that is that young people are really looking up to athletes who are standing for something more than their sport. They're valuing that reflection of their social responsibility and activism reflected in the celebrities that they are supporting, whether it be in football, but also just generally across sport. And they're actively looking for brands and sports people who are aligning with those brands to be philanthropic, to have social stances, and to align with them. Something very close to my heart is we've seen a lot more mentions and a lot more viewership among Formula One and football for women in the last couple of years. What we sort of suspect and looking a little bit into some desk research is that TikTok is a key platform for educating young women about sport, like Formula One and football, both men and women's football. There's been a significant increase in the followership of this. So this is which do you follow regularly, and as you can see, it's significantly increased for both Formula One and for football. In cases like this, it's the social media platforms that are acting as sort of informational gateways to these new audiences, and they democratize access to sports knowledge in a way that it might have been more difficult to understand sort of the rules of the game, what it is that's actually happening in previous years. Spotlighting these athletes as well, particularly when it comes to Formula One and football, and sort of documentary style shows across streaming platforms is also a really interesting way to bring the human story and I guess sort of a bit of the drama into the sport. Shows like I'm sure everyone has heard of Drive to Survive, which is a very popular show on Netflix. The recent Beckham's documentary, we saw David Beckham returning to our top 10 this year as well, even though he's not an active football player at the minute, but his documentary came out in the last 6 months. And then also like shows like the Six Nations Full Contact show are extremely popular among young people, and they let them sort of behind the scenes to see the inside view of these athletes' lives. And then finally, mostly inspired by the movie Challengers, which was very popular and came out a couple of months ago. It starred Zendaya. The tennis core trend is gaining a lot of traction. If you are on TikTok regularly, I'm sure you have seen something related to tennis. And it's really sort of influencing fashion with items like skirts and headbands and things like that. Sport has always influenced lifestyle and fashion trends, but it seems like summer 2024 will really be defined by tennis, which has extended way beyond its reach and traditional boundaries and sort of into the world of hobbies. I mean, if you are in your 20s and you don't know someone who plays paddle, I don't believe you live in the UK. It's become so popular. People wearing leisure wear, sources like Lululemon and Ralph Lauren bringing out tennis dresses, skirts, things like that. And then just generally in pop culture with memes and TikToks about the Challengers movie. It's a real key time for us and our clients to sort of capitalize on that tennis core trend and marketing, comms, and products aimed at young people because it's really what they're picking up right now. Yep. And the final section of our culture list, our final list this June, is our food trends. Now, this was a very interesting one. I think it's quite a broad remit for us to ask young people. We just say, what food trends have you noticed recently? And it runs the whole gamut from things that we've heard of to things that, like, for example, on this slide, we have a girl who only eats raw meat that we have never heard of, and quite frankly it scares us a little bit. So this is a very interesting one to research. Veganism is one that has been the top for the last couple of times that we've asked this question. It seems to be the most sort of popular, prominent and nameable diet out there for young people. And then we see some new additions and more popular additions in the keto diet, avocados in general, and then also food cooking items. Sorry, you can tell that I'm not a very professional cook by this, but products, I guess you could say, have come through a lot more. So things like air fryers, slow cookers, and things that would aid in people cooking certain foods. We've really, what we can tell from what we saw so far is that we've seen a real rise in specialised diets getting very much more specific than they have been in previous waves, particularly ones that promise a sort of holistic well-being, lifestyle improvement, things like the keto diet, which has gained traction for its potential for like mental health, weight loss, and just all-round health benefits. So as I said, veganism has always been a key trend with Gen Z. I think it's one of the top things that and sustainability that are associated with Gen Z. It really does sort of define the generation. And as far as we've tracked young people, we've seen it be consistently increasing. For those who would consider a vegan and plant-based diet, it's slightly lower and slightly more unsteady for those who actually are engaging in that every day and actually become vegans. What's interesting for us in this sort of vegan realm is that while environmental and sustainable side effects of it are quite popular among young people as reasons for choosing to be a vegan, the most prominent one is actually its health benefits. And it's really that's driving young people to become vegans and to eat less meat. So for our clients and just generally for everyone concerned with Gen Z, what we sort of see as key, because this is such a massive trend among them, is to ensure that there are plant-based options available to them and being both conscious of sustainability, but also keeping that well-being aspect in, as that is a really key driver for young people to consider a plant-based diet. And then one thing that was quite interesting that we saw this wave was a sort of increase in people who mentioned terms like protein, low carb, calorie deficit, indicating this sort of very specific and focused healthy eating on a very particular macro or micronutrient. We've covered in the past the trend of clean eating. You can see our spotlight on it here to the right. And it's quite a controversial topic when we start to look into it, particularly on TikTok. There's a vast waves of people who are shunning this sort of diet culture, saying it's harmful and not great for young girls. And then we have another sort of camp who embrace it, offering specific recipes, tips, and sort of naming and almost trendifying certain types of lifestyles. So we've seen things like the clean girl aesthetic come through, sort of carnivore diet, which is when you eat primarily meats. And yeah, just the increased trend of what I eat in a day is where you follow around an influencer for the day and see exactly what it is that they are eating and drinking. Wherever you sort of fall on the debate of whether it's a good or a bad thing, it's safe to say that nutrition has become increasingly important for Gen Z consumers. They're almost eagle-eyed when it comes to the nutritional information, the macros and the micros about a product, and they also want to be told in detail about the health benefits of the product that they are buying. Oh, sorry, that was a bit loud. And then finally, a trend that definitely appeals to me. Despite all of our talk about health trends, fast food still does remain a key favourite among young people, unsurprisingly. Particularly what we've seen in the last couple of waves is more boutique style, smaller chain restaurants. So we see mentions for brands like Wingstop, Attis, Fire Away, German Doner Kebab come through in the last year, showing this sort of quick convenient comfort food is still popular, but as these smaller, more boutique chains that are increasingly popular among young people. What we can sort of deduce from that is that people are liking smaller chains because they feel like for this generation, they feel like they're on trend because it's a smaller, maybe more localized, specialized destination, but they can also be more sustainable for a generation that's very concerned with being sustainable. And they're also more transparent about their sourcing and information when it comes to nutritional content. So sort of a summation of all of the trends that we've spoken about today, these sort of more boutique style chains can offer that. The trend is also driven by, on the right, you can see here a thing called mukbangs on TikTok, which if you've never seen or never heard of these, they are videos, primarily live streamed videos, where a person gets sort of a large amount of food or almost everything on a menu from a particular specific chain, and then eats them and rates their experience back, sort of recommending what to have and what not to have. And we can really see these starting to rise for brands like Wingstop and Fireway in the last few years. And yeah, I'm going to hand back to Josephine to tell you what we can learn about Gen Z from all of this information.
Brilliant. Thank you, Caitlin. That was great. And I guess, as usual, we reflect back on the lists that we've shared with you, trying to see what the common themes are and what we can take from that to help our understanding of the next generation. So here are our three. You might have other interpretations, but our starter for 10 are. So Gen Z are strong in their values and they're looking for people to stand with them. So whether that's the environment, whether that's society, or just general lifestyle, Gen Z are looking to people, brands and products to see how much they align with their personal values. TikTok as an information source. So I talked about this a little bit in my section, but Gen Z are using TikTok as a search engine for inspiration. And it's not just to find out about things, but it's also for recommendations. So Caitlin was talking about food recommendations. I was talking about TV shows. They're using it to help navigate their life and curate a lifestyle that they want to have. And finally, humanity wins in the age of AI. What we found this culture list, I think, that young people are really interested in the human story. If we think about Baby Reindeer, which is all about sort of humanity, and then we had Messi and his kind of philanthropy. People are interested in people, and I think that's something that we need to remember, something that's great for us as market researchers to always remember, but also ways to engage with the next generation is through their humanity and curiosity and the humankind. So that is the end of the culture list. I've got maybe one or two more slides to share with you. This is what's coming next. So we've got a spotlight. So that's one of our one pages. I think Caitlin showed you that earlier for the clean eating trend. So the next one will be coming out on the 4th of July, which is next week, big day. Then in September, we'll have another one of these culture lists. I hope you can join us. And then our new wave of data, so wave 53, which is very exciting that we are over the 50th wave, will be on the dashboard in the next few weeks. We're just finalising the cleaning of that data now. And I guess before I let you go, just want to remind you about State of Youth Nation. Oh, where's it gone? Well, I can speak to a blank slide. That's absolutely fine, or no slide at all. Just to say that as part of your membership to State of the Youth Nation, you do get access to the latest trends. You do get the webinars. You do get the insight dashboard, the data dashboard, and the ability to put your questions to young people on our panel. So just a reminder of what that subscription gives you. But until, oh gosh, I've forgotten when the next is, September, I think, when the next culture list will be. Have a lovely summer and we will see you again then. Thanks for your time.